Been a while. Today, I'm just doing an episode probably after about a year. That's the beauty of content creation. You can stop whenever you want, you can start up whenever you want, especially when it's a side project, a hobby. Uh, yeah, I suppose in that time, I think I stopped for a while because I didn't have much more to say. It takes up quite a lot of energy actually as well to create podcasts, put them on YouTube, uh, get the illustrations together. And yeah, there was quite a lot of work to it. And my life circumstances have changed during the last year and a half or so. So I think there's just peaks and troughs. Sometimes you have more time to do something. Sometimes you have less time to do something. Sometimes you need to take a break entirely because content creation it can almost become part of your personality that you see yourself as this person who creates content, and I have to question how beneficial that is. Although in taking the break, I did notice that there are some negatives to maybe not creating content. There's definitely an element of purpose and direction, and it's a reason to keep positive or keep questioning yourself, keep questioning life, and with the goal of sharing insights. And so there's an element of that that can get lost when you're not maybe creating things. I did notice myself a tendency to just mindlessly consume more YouTube videos, which I'm trying to cut back on, make more of an effort in cutting back on the next while. And then a lot has changed. I received some bad news at the end of last year that Davey had died. Davey, the illustrator of this podcast, had died. So that hit me quite hard. I suppose when you lose someone, it's only when you lose someone, I suppose, you realize the importance they had in your life, the role they played in your life, and yeah, yeah, it's tough to take. I would have seen it as an end to this podcast for a while as well. Then I just decided I'd just record something. I don't know how long more this podcast I'll do, but I think with Davy's death, it made me appreciate the legacy he's left behind. I had a good connection with Davy. I think we're on a similar enough wavelength around a bunch of things. He's quite a realist. He didn't have his head in the clouds from my interactions with him. He didn't shy away from life being difficult. But when you actually look at his legacy, then he did create a lot of children's books, and he created a lot of books that were like uplifting, even my own as well. It's like the purpose behind it was to bring some hope, even in the midst of darkness. Bring some hope that like things happen, and it's what you do with it that really matters, that really counts. So I suppose looking at Davy's legacy, it just made me realize that what he's left behind is quite positive. It's uplifting. It's even though he was a realist, he was also someone who just put good things out there, good messaging for children and teens, and yeah, he's created a legacy behind him, and that's something I very much respect. And yeah, it got me to think about even with my own content, uh, even though I mightn't be very consistent moving forward. I think it might be helpful, even if it's just somebody who knows me or something. That I think it's good to share your thoughts in life, so that, like other people don't feel so alone. 'Cause it's so easy to go about your life day to day and not really show what you're going through, what you're feeling, what you're thinking. And I've often found it helpful in my life coming across someone who might be sharing honestly about what they're going through, or some thoughts they might have, or just some insights that they're sharing. I've always found that beneficial, and I suppose with Davey as well, it made me really question what is it about a person that you miss? Because like the loss of Davey hit me hard, and the thing is, I never met Davey in real life, but we had a lot of conversations back and forth with what we're working on, and over the last 5 6 years. And because this podcast is like one of the goals is to express myself as authentically as I can, and I think that's what Davey brought to the plate too in terms of his work and the way he interacted with me. It made me question like what is it that's important about your connection to someone, because I'd never met Davey in real life, yet it still had an impact on me when I heard the news that he died. It just got me to think about that, and I think it was the connection I had with him that I think when you're coming from a place of authenticity with someone, it doesn't necessarily matter so much the physical location. Like things you could know people in your physical proximity, and it mightn't hit you that hard at all if you didn't see them again, because you mightn't have really known them. You mightn't have really had conversations with them. Obviously, there's different depth to that. Different people have different capacities to express themselves, and I suppose it's worth paying attention to how people express themselves. So that ties into even love languages. Some people express themselves through money, or like there's lots of different ways to express yourself, to show you care. That might necessarily be through words, but that's what it got me to think about in a way that like if somebody I never met in physical life had such an impact on me, got me to think about even the podcast here. I might never meet you, the person listening to this, but it could still have a an impact in your life. Got me to even think about that, because I do have a tendency. I think it's maybe human nature. I can go kind of black and white in things. Like if I go through phases in my life and I can't fit everything in, I might decide I'm not doing this no more. But that mightn't necessarily be the answer. Maybe with this podcast, every now and again, I'll share my thoughts if I have the time. I'm trying to, I suppose, be more present day to day in my life. Recently, I just yesterday decided I'm going to apply for a psychotherapy course. I've been going back and forth in my mind for the last few weeks, and probably the last few years. It's probably been in the back of my mind back and forth. And yeah, I just noticed I have a tendency to project too far into the future and to worry too far into the future, and that kind of stops me from making the right decision for me right now and just taking it day by day. So I'm trying to be a bit better with that, even with this as well. The thought of me publishing an episode again, I would have been like, I'm not going to be able to fit this into my life anymore. But I guess what I'm trying to say is, if there's something you want to do that you feel is tied to in some way, shape, or form to some sort of meaning you get from your life, or some sort of legacy you want to leave behind, then it mightn't necessarily be an all or nothing zero sum game. The thing is, I think as you get older in life, if you meet someone, there's more and more responsibilities will be added to your life as you get older, and it's easy to become apathetic about life and not find time for your passion projects, or not find time for something that provides meaning in your life outside of just getting older and going through the different phases of life. I suppose what I'm trying to find is to do the things that I find are meaningful to me and not overwhelm myself at the same time. Kind of just let it organically grow in the way it's meant to grow. So yeah, that's what I really wanted to talk about today. Just the loss of Davey it's changed things obviously, because Davey was illustrating this podcast and my books. We were working on a book there the past few months since I stopped the podcast. Davey was quite good in the sense that he kind of, I think when I stopped with the podcast, I was kind of, I'm happy not to do anything for a while. And I don't know, David always kind of messaged me, or kind of kept me going to just maybe even keep writing, even if I don't know what I'm writing about. And that's kind of what we were doing the past few months, writing a book. It was about this character that David came up with, who had a bucket in his head. We went back and forth on names in that. Buketsky, I think we called it in the end, but I don't know whether that's really the name for the character. But it was a book kind of about this character who's just has these philosophical musings about life, just contemplating life at a deeper level and just kind of sharing it, and with no real purpose or aim. And I don't necessarily know what that book was about. I don't know whether I'll come back to it in the future and try and finish it. It was strange because the last thing I wrote before Davy died was about sadness and being overwhelmed with sadness. I might just read it there. I suppose the thing is, Davy was a significant person I've lost in my life now, where I'm actually in a place where I feel my feelings. Probably the first person now who's been significant that I've lost, that I'm in a place where I actually feel my feelings. And what I did found helpful in the grieving process was to just kind of feel what I'm feeling, and it just kind of came to me in waves, and it was quite intense sometimes. And I just can't even understand the grieving process because it's hard to make sense of the sadness sometimes. But I was happy that I actually felt it this time, and it comes in waves, and just feel it until it's kind of gone from your system, and well, the intensity's gone from the system. And I did find that kind of helped me to gain perspective and appreciate like the impact Davey had, and the legacy he's left behind now. And yeah, it was interesting. The last thing I wrote, I'll just bring it up here, and it's funny because I had originally deleted it because I was like, this is quite depressing. I don't know whether I want to be writing these things. Like, what use is this? Especially this one. I think I'd watched something maybe that influenced what I was taught, what I wrote here. But there's certain things in this they're not all as depressing as this. But yeah, I think I'd heard something first before I started writing this. But anyway, it was basically what I was doing. We had a document called Image Ideas, and I was writing down, I was writing down paragraphs with a title, and Davey would take the title image, read the paragraph, and draw a picture based off of it. And so this one was just the title. I call it Breathing in a Sea of Sadness. So there was a little kind of, not really poetry, but it was kind of, I was kind of writing as the character, and I just wrote maybe 2 or 3 lines each paragraph as well, each image. That was what the character was kind of poetically saying. And it was just, even when life feels easy, it is hard. It's only a matter of time before it all fades to dust. Can I write that? Huh. Yeah, actually, yeah. So yeah, I did write that actually. So even when life feels easy, it is hard. It's only a matter of time before it all fades to dust. And then I do a reflection on those lines and for that image. So I said, have you ever been so overcome by tears that you found it hard to breathe? How can I learn to breathe when a sense of sadness overcomes me? A sense of sadness not in the here and now, but a sense of sadness at the inevitable future outcomes. The passing of time makes it so no. The passing of time makes it so that cherished friendships will disappear no matter how firmly I cling on to them. My family will move into the ether just like every other living being does. How can I accept those most difficult of truths and still remain an optimist? So like that final line is that's something that like challenges me, and that's the challenging part of creating something. You want to put something out there that's hopeful but be real at the same time. And that's why I said I liked in Davey too. He was a realist, but willing to be an optimist in spite of that realism. Maybe it wasn't in spite of that realism. Maybe it's the realism that gives you authentic optimism about the world, puts things into perspective. Because life is much more, it's just deeper and more profound than we can imagine. And accepting difficult truths is part of getting a glimpse of some of that depth to life. So that's what I wrote. I, yeah, I'd written that because that's what I was feeling, and that was before Davey had died. I think it's part of gradually getting older. You start to realize that life isn't endless and there is a time limit. As you start to see yourself aging a bit, you start to see your family and friends aging a little bit as the years go by. It's a realization that you don't have all the time in the world, and yeah, it was only a few days later that that Davy died. Then, um, but that's why art is therapeutic. Like it connects you with your feelings, and I think it's better to acknowledge them and feel them and deal with them than to like deny them. Um, I think that's the beauty of writing and the healing power of art and creativity. But I'd say that's the last thing I was writing. So I don't know. I might revisit this book again in the future. I don't know really what to do with it anymore because Davey's not there to draw any more images, and I don't feel an urgency in doing this book. I always kind of said it'd take maybe 9, 10 years, but we're doing an image a month. I was imagining it as a book that had a lot of images in it, and that I would know one day when it was finished because I have no idea what this book was about other than a character who had philosophical musings about life, was just contemplating life and sharing that and just sharing what he's feeling, and that was basically the book. So I didn't know how it would unfold or how I would know when it was done. And that's what I like about writing. That's like it mimics life, as in, so we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow or the day after or next year or the year after that. We really don't know. We just have plans, and that's all we can do, plan. But those plans might never come into fruition, or they might be better or worse. Things might turn out better or worse than we imagined. So that's what I like about writing a book too, trying to have that somewhat organic process that isn't artificially controlled too much by me. But that's basically what I wanted to just talk about today. It's been a year since my last podcast. It was a good break. I'm not saying that I'm going to do a podcast pretty soon after this one again, but I wanted to touch base, share some of that today. I hope that's been of some bit of use anyway. And yeah, I'll speak to you when I speak to you.